The idea that I'm going to share today using hot and cold cubes to be able to add and subtract integers comes from the interactive mathematics project with the activity called the Chef's Amazing Pot. For the most part, you have this one huge pot with lots and lots of hot and cold cubes at the bottom. And for each hot cube, there corresponds to be one cold cube. One hot cube is like a positive 1. One cold cube is like a negative 1. So therefore, one hot and one cold together would make 0 because they cancel each other out. Now, we're going to be going ahead and adding and subtracting some hot and cold cubes from this large pot. So let's consider this problem. We're going to let H once again represent a positive number and C represent a negative number. Here we're taking a positive 7 and adding a positive 2. So that means we're going to need to have 7 H's here. We're going to need to add 2 more H's here. Well, how many H's do we see compared to what we have at the bottom? And the bottom once again represents 0 because there's an equal number of H's and C's. Well, we have then 9 additional H's towards the top, which means 7 plus 2 is 9, since we have 9 H's, and each H represents a positive 1. So now let's consider using this idea here where we have 7 plus a negative 2. So that means we need to have 7 H's, and then we need to come along and deal with the negative 2, which would be 2 of the C's. Well, remember that an H and a C together cancel each other out and represent 0. So these are going to cancel each other out. So that means what are we left with? Well, we're left with 5 extra H's here. So 7 plus a negative 2 equals 5. So let's consider this one here of a negative 7 plus 2. So we need to have 7 of the C's because each C represents a negative 1. And now we need to add in a positive 2, so that would be 2 of the H's. Well, once again, a C and an H together represent 0, so they're going to cancel each other out, and we're going to be left with 5 extra C's. So negative 7 plus 2 equals negative 5. Negative 7 plus a negative 2. So we'd have to then start out with 7 of the C's, and then we'd have to add in 2 more C's for the negative 2. So we now have a total of negative 9 of the C, or if I can talk here, sorry. We have a total of 9 of the C's. So 7 plus a negative 2 represents a negative 9. So now let's take a look at subtraction, since we were just dealing with addition. We're going to have to start out with 7 of the H's because we have a positive 7. Then when we're looking at subtracting 2, that means we need to take away. So we need to take away 2 of the H's. So when we take away 2 of the H's, they're going to disappear, and that's going to leave us with 5 of the H's. So 7 minus 2 is 5, since we're left with 5 of the H's. When we look at 7 minus a negative 2, we're going to still start out with 7 of the H's. However, we now need to take away 2 of the C's, but we don't have any C's right now in the top area. So what are we going to do? We're going to pull up 2 of the C's from the bottom, but we're going to pull up a C hooked with an H, a C hooked up with an H, because that corresponds to 0. Well, I'm going to just make them a little bit bigger. We now have 2 of the C's in the top part of the pot that we can go ahead and take away. So we'll take away 2 of those C's. We are now left with 9 of the H's here at the top. So 7 minus a negative 2 represents 9. negative 7 minus 2. So we're going to start out with putting in 7 of the c's, and now we need to take away 2 h's. Well, we don't have 2 h's at the top to take away. So I'm going to use 2 of the h's from below. So I'm going to bring up an h and a c from below, make them bigger. Now I have some h's at the top. I can take those away. So now I am left with a total of 9 of the c's. So negative 7 minus 2 is negative 9 since I have 9 of the c's. So let's consider negative 7 minus negative 2. So I'm going to still start out with the negatives or 7 c's because that's representing a negative 7. And I need to take 2 of those negative 2 or negatives. I need to subtract a negative 2. So to do that, I need to take 2 of the c's away. So just circle 2 of them, pull them out of there. We're only left with 5 of the c's. So that means a negative 7 minus a negative 2 is a negative 5. Thank you for taking the time to watch this.